I love risk management so much that I stay up all night reading it. But I love it even more when I get to present it, and I love it even greater when I don't have to. So I'd like to take this time to introduce our guest speaker. He sits on the risk management committee with me at SCAR. When he speaks, I listen. Because actually smart things come out of his mouth. But I'm an amazing pro. So without further ado, let's welcome up Mr. Robert Sutherland.
Well, clearly he was serving liquor with the lunch. He had all the nice things to say about me. I always have these notes, but I'll try to look at them a lot. You know, after I've been doing this thing for 19 years, so after a while, it's just kind of along my own mind. So I want to make sure I stay interesting for you. I've been doing this, like I said, for about 19 years, defending brokers, agents primarily. And I love it. I still love it after all these years. It's because I really like what we do. You know, it seems like you talk to a lot of attorneys and you just don't understand how hard each of you in the room works. Everybody just, their attorneys are horrible. First of all, I don't like attorneys. Let's get that out. But you know, attorneys don't get it any more than the average public consumer. They don't understand how hard you work, how much effort you put in, because you don't get paid every time you deal with a client. You get paid on the client that eventually closes the deal. And it's not easy getting there, because a lot of obstacles come up in the way. Attorneys get in the way, they're a big problem, they're kind of the deal killers. And people are greedy, and they try to take away your opportunity, they try to take away your money from you. And so my goal, when I come here today, and I get to speak with agents such as yourself, is to sensitize you to some fact patterns and some issues. You know, there's going to be a quiz, it's not continuing ed, you know, you don't have to push the icon on the screen every so many minutes to get the credit. It's no test, it's just I want you to kind of remember the basic concepts. So if you find yourself in a situation such as I reviewed today, you know to ask for help. And that's the key. You're at a place where you can ask for help. That's why you're here. You can work at any brokerage you want. You're all in tech. You can go anywhere you want. But you picked this group because you felt you'd have the support you needed. So when these issues come up, you reach out for help. You go to Robert and say, hey, remember that guy that you made me show up that day? You told me I was going to have a great lunch. Lunch was good. Then I had to listen to him. Well, he said this thing. I need help. So you'll reach out and you'll do that. So yeah, I've already gotten through like the first page and a half. Look at that. And the other thing is my outline keeps getting bigger each year. And it's really not that things have changed that much, it's that my vision's getting worse as I get older. The one thing I want to warn you, and each of you suffer from this, whether you realize it or not, it's what makes you great, and it's what makes you lethal. Okay, it's kind of that internal mechanism that can kill you and take you out. It's a time bomb. You each, I think you can understand the first part, which is you work in the yes business, right? How do you close a transaction? The yeses have to outweigh the nos, especially at critical times. So you're trained in a way, whether you realize it or not, to want to overcome obstacles. You know, it starts out with the client, you meet with them, what are you looking for, what do you need? You quickly hear clearly they're not looking for something like this, they want it more like this. You start structuring what you're showing them and what you're dealing with in a certain way. You're working on the yeses. And before you know it, that's really what you want all the time, right? It's great when you get yes all the time. It's like when you're a kid, if mom and dad say yes all the time, life's great. So you look for that. We're trained that way. The problem is, if you're not careful, as you're striving to get the yes and to accomplish things and justifying that I'm doing the best thing for my client, you can very, very quickly step over the line of what you should be doing as a licensee. You can very quickly be taken advantage of. Clients, they're great, we need them, but they're a nightmare too, we can be honest, right? Sometimes, not all, but some clients are tougher than others. They're like children. I've got 3 kids, and I can admit it, they're not here. Some days I don't love them all. I don't. Some days I love one a lot, and the other 2 not so much. And then the next day I love the other one just as much or more. It varies. We don't admit this, but we know. We know. It's true. Our clients are no different. But we have to be careful because like our kids, they will take advantage of you. Your clients will have you do everything for them. They will have you pick their inspector. They will have you go here, go there, go search for building records, go do all these things. Before you know it, you'll be picking up their dry cleaning and taking their kids to school. If you will do so, they'll be glad for you to do it. So you have to be careful. And we're going to talk about the boundaries where you need to be careful. And you need to realize, you know, my job as a very effective realtor isn't to always have a yes. Sometimes you have to have a no. Sometimes you have to tell them, you know what? I don't know. And I know people are afraid to do that to a client, to tell them they don't know. But you have to set the boundaries. And I'll give you those examples. I'll just start with it. Client asked a question about, should I get this inspected or not? Well, the inspector, look, we had an inspector here this morning. He's with CREA. It's a great organization. I always say, work with an inspector that's with an organization like that, because they have a higher level of training. Like he said, they're not licensed, but you can voluntarily join an association that holds people to higher standards. That's good. That's protection for you. Because if you're recommending, basically I say, here's an organization that has this, pick your inspector, or you've got an inspector who's affiliated, at least you can say they're held to a higher level. Because they're not licensed. Every now and then I see an offer that says, buyer to have inspection by licensed inspector. There's no such thing. There's licensed general contractors, but they're not necessarily inspectors. In theory, they could. And then there's inspectors, and not all inspectors are created equal. Some of them belong to CREA, some of them belong to HNASH, or whatever the acronym is. But they're not all the same. So it's good to have them with an institution like that. Now, we know that the inspectors, they go to seminars like this as well. And they don't want to buy, a bunch of appliances and roofs for people. So what do we know when we see an inspection report? Every inspection report that I've ever seen, it's almost like, I think, there's like a default, right? Like the inspections all read the same, and then they put the address in, and then they change it some. And I know that's an oversimplification, but they always say things like, ground fault interrupt, doesn't work properly, inadequate grounding in the sub panel, roof inspections beyond the scope of our expertise. We don't go that far. We don't inspect the roof. We don't do the sewer line. There's things we don't do because they're telling you, I don't want to be responsible for this. I'm not doing it. And then, of course, to show they care, they say, but you should have somebody look at this. It's nice that we're doing it. But understand what that means. What they have done effectively and intelligently is they've now thrown that issue right back in your lap. Because they basically paid the money for the inspection, and they said, and I don't know about these 3 or 4 things, or maybe more. Have a contractor check it out, investigate this. So what do? Well, we know you don't go up on a roof. We know you don't go to crawl space. At least please don't be one of those. Because you're not supposed to. The rule for a realtor is you should be able to wear a white jumpsuit and white gloves and do your visual inspection. And hopefully, unless it was like Monday or Tuesday of this week, you shouldn't break a sweat, you shouldn't get dirty. That's the test. So you're not moving things, you're not crawling up ladders, you're not going to roofs, you're not going to crawl spaces. The inspector will say, have these things inspected. And we know what happens. Virtually every buyer goes, I don't want to do that. If they're taking the time to read the report, they're already frustrated because they say, I just spent $500 for an inspection and I'm dumber for the experience because now they're telling me I still don't know what my house is about. Well, I already spent $500 and I'm done with these inspections. I've done enough, that's it. And they don't want to look at these other things. But you see, you have seen this report. You have this report. This report has told your client, if you represent them, to check these things out. So your job, unfortunately, because they've now taken that hot potato and dropped it right back in your lap, is you have to do something about it. You have to tell your client, hey, we've looked at the first thing is you tell your client, please beat the inspection. Please be there. Your client should always be there. This is like a physical exam of their house. The most expensive thing they're probably going to buy perhaps in their lifetime. They go to their own medical exam, they don't do it through FaceTime. They should probably show up when their house is getting inspected and hear from the inspector what they find. It's their house, not yours. It's also better because I like the direct communication between the inspector and the client. I don't want to have somebody tell me things that then I've got to go back and tell my client. It's more work. It's more that I have to cover my backside. So the client should be there, okay? And then when they say get these additional inspections and your client says they don't want to, great, that's their call. But what you have to say is, and you talk about it verbally first, and then you follow it up in an email, because it doesn't matter what you say if you can't prove it. Because when the lawsuit happens, the buyer, they suffer from the phenomenon that I describe, I call litigation amnesia. As soon as the lawsuit gets filed, they forget. They don't remember anything that happened. They're breathing ether fumes. So I've had people actually forget how to speak English. They say, I don't speak English all of a sudden. They're like, yes, you did when you were there. No, that's my second language. They're now talking in some other language. So what you do is you say, look, the inspector said you should get A, B, C, and D checked out. I need to know if you want to do that. We should do this certainly within your inspection contingency phase. You know, do you want to proceed with any of these? They probably already told you no. You say you've indicated you don't want to do any of these. I understand. And this is the kicker. This is when you say, but please understand, without doing additional inspection, you'll have no idea what the condition is because I don't know what it is. So you tell them, if you don't do it, that's great, but you won't know. And then I usually, to show I care, I say something like, but if you change your mind, you know, the best time to do that would be during your inspection contingency phase, please let me know. Something like that. You don't have to be insane and send them 16 reminders after that. If you want to be crazy and send an extra reminder, I like the file when it comes across my desk. But the bottom line is, have some proof that you have the discussion. So now let's just talk about the proof. How do you have the client that doesn't scoop on you when they file a lawsuit? I can't deny things. Because they did. They all did. Look, it happens even in the best of relationships. All point your life in this room, you had a significant other, you had a disagreement, you thought you said this, and they swore you said that. And this is somebody you love. It's not just a client. So they have disagreements. So what I like to do is I follow up. And I personally do it through email. I know that's old. I'm old, right? I'm more serial email. I know we have serial texters in the room. It's just the way it is, right? People text all the time. I'll be honest. It's my personal rant. They tell me if I talk about it, it'll be good for me. So I get to come to these I get to say, hello, my name's Robert, and I hate texting. I get it. And the reason why I don't like it is, for me at least, in a perfect world that we don't live in, texting is I'm at the curb in the dark suit with a black bag. It's so you know where to pick me up or something. Where are you? Texting is when you're at the mall with somebody. Where are you? You know, because you don't want to call them. I don't like conducting a lot of business via text. The reason why I don't like conducting business via text is, first of all, you know, text messages, it's like a verbal joust. 3 words, 2 words, you know, LOL, blah, blah, blah. Pretty soon after all those LOLs, I get to the WTF. Because it's just like, it's too many acronyms, and why can't you just use English, you people? And it's hard, because if you start negotiating these things back and forth, one sentence, the text message means this. The verbal joust back, all of a sudden it's a new dynamic. And then before you know it, there's 3 more words and it's something that's totally different. People don't even use words almost. And so if they file a complaint against you at the association or the BRE, what do? Like the significant other they had the argument with, they pick the 2 choice words, and it's never, I'm sorry. It's not those words they pick. It's you said this, and this is what they submit with their complaint. If you don't have the rest of the chain to show what it really is and put it in context, you're screwed. Okay? Because now they've got something and you don't have anything to rebut it. So are you saving all your text messages? You can, perhaps that do it. Are you? If you are, okay, great. You're past the first hurdle. That's good. I like it. Personally, you know, I'll tell you the other problem that concerns me. It's actually kind of funny for me, not for you. When a lawsuit comes, you've been texting, and you know maybe you don't have all your texts. You say, I want my texts. You don't just get to go down to Verizon and say, man, please have my texts. They get concerned about privacy issues, and it's not just your text. Somebody else received that text. I don't know. I don't want to release it. And they won't give it to you. You paid your bill, you've been with them forever, they won't give you your text messages unless you get a subpoena. Court documents, and you gotta give me my text messages. The problem is when you get a subpoena in a lawsuit, the other attorney gets to find out about it. And so they go, great. So now, you know, they get to get all these text messages. This is where it gets interesting. Verizon doesn't put a filter when they produce your text messages. There isn't a child setting like on your cable TV. Okay, you don't get to set the box. So all your text messages get barfed up. All of your text messages. A lot of you got that. One or two that didn't, let me make it clear. received a text, clearly by accident, that was not intended for you, but nonetheless, it would be embarrassing if your mother or your wife or significant other or priest or child saw the text. You got a problem if you're using your text messaging for business. If you want to do that, use the burner phone or something like that. But dude, don't use it for your business. And as funny as you think this is, I'll be honest. Everybody, when they're in their own profession, behind closed doors, they kind of laugh. They don't laugh in public. These text messages come into my office. I defend these cases. And once a week we have a calendar meeting, and we go over the funniest things. Not just the calendar, because it's boring, the calendar. We're like realtors, we got something to talk. And the text messages come out. I gotta be careful because I'm an employer, so I don't want to be inappropriate with staff. But yet, it happens, and people see these things. The other reason why I'm gonna ask you to be careful about your texting is, I'll be honest, there are just some things I don't want to say. I shouldn't be subjected to that. You don't pay me enough. And I am going to need some real therapy here pretty soon, because it's bad, these things. So keep those things to yourself, or text them to your heart's content, but maybe not the phone you're using for your business, unless you're really proud of what you're doing. You can be an Anthony Weiner. And sure. It could be a little embarrassing, so I just want you to think about that. Let that settle, because it could be a problem for you. It's really embarrassing in a case when those things come out. It's embarrassing, so think about that. I would be careful. I talked about, so texting, a little bit of an issue. Emailing, less with that. I take all my emails, I always make sure my rate line tells me the property or whatever, and I drag it into a little folder right there in Outlook for that property. It's so nice and orderly and clean. And I use my email like my list. So at the end of the day, I go back through my email. If I not responded to anybody, is there anything that I missed? The other thing that I like about emailing is, if I couldn't return a phone call, and it happens, I could be in a mediation, I could be in a deposition, I could be traveling. There are times that I can't get back to a client. But we know, in your business especially, communication is everything. If you don't stay in touch with your people, they freak out. I mean, your clients are like big babies. They freak out when they don't feel that connection all the time, because they won't admit it, but they're a little scared. They don't really know what the hell they're doing buying or selling a house usually. They'd like to tell you they know everything, and they act like they know everything, but they're scared. And when they can't get that lifeline to you, that's when they start listening to idiots and other people. So I do it the same way. I look at it, and if I couldn't respond to somebody for some reason, I at least send them an email saying, sorry, I didn't get a chance, I was going from here to there, but I didn't want to end the day and turn the lights out before I responded to you. And I will contact you tomorrow between X and Y, and please feel free to email me back at any time, and I'll get right back to you. So I keep the communication going. And I have a record of my communication. I don't like texting them so much because I don't know if it's going to buzz and wake them up. Usually the email is not so much. So I tend to do more by email, plus it's easy because I just drag it into my folder. It's all there with all my other communication. I save it all. When I'm all done with it, I drag it into that little folder. And when I close the deal and it's all done, I save the folder electronically and I get rid of it. It's gone. And I've got paperwork, I've got my electronic folder, and I've got backup for the one place. You have to save these things for the BRE for 3 years, right? But I do it that way. So email helps that way. The other thing I like to do is I have to be sensitive to how my clients communicate. Some clients don't really like email. Some clients are all texters. So just because I like it doesn't matter if they don't like it. But what I tell my people at the beginning of the relationship is to say, let's talk about how, we're going to move forward and how we communicate and things like that. How do you like it? Well, I like texting. Okay, great. I'm going to have to send some documents to you at given times, whether it's a Dropbox or to this or that, how we're doing it. But I'm going to be sending you information, and I need to have a record of it. It's very important that I have a record of all this stuff. It's important for you that I have all this stuff. And so I'm going to need to email you some things sometimes, perhaps. Now, if you're a texter, I have to respect that. So if I send you an email, I'm not just going to send you an email. I will send you a text saying, I know it sounds ridiculous, I just sent you an email. But that's what I do, and I have the email. That's how I do it. I also do it with email in the beginning with the client. I send them an email to make sure they get it. Because for some reason I've got my own server and my own domain and all that, and sometimes they spam me, they say I'm bad, and I'm not. Okay, you know, I go into somebody's spam, so I check, I make sure they get it. I check my spam and I check my junk, just like I check my inbox. I've also got some software that tells me, gives me a list of everything I want to junk and spam. You just look at it right there and see what I missed. Because that's important. If you miss something, you got a real problem, your client starts freaking out. So anyway, bottom line is that's how I like doing it. I like to show consistent communication with my client going back and forth. The single biggest issue that I see where things start to come off the rails when I get a risk management call and I'm talking with somebody about an issue, usually the issue with the client who's upset is either the communication wasn't timely or somebody got a little too emotional. And usually it's the client, but they always say it's the agent. So you always have to remember with your clients when they're being difficult and you get frustrated, it's their transaction, not your transactions. I know you feel it's yours because you're working real hard, but when clients do really stupid things, and they will, because they're people make mistakes, it's why I make a living, it happens. We can't get too aggressive with them, especially the classic one to illustrate is your dual agent. You have the fortune or misfortune of representing both sides. More commissions. Ooh, that part, which is now what happens. The two children don't feel like they're being treated equally with each other. Usually one feels that they're being favored over the other. Whether that's true or not, it happens. Whether it's their insecurity or how you communicated, it happens. The minute that happens, you lose your authority and your respect for the transaction. So you have to be exceedingly careful when you're writing these emails. When a buyer doesn't like what a seller is doing, and it's your seller, you don't start being too nasty to the seller about it. Even if the buyer's right, the seller's a moron. You have to say, the buyers expressed the following to me, blah, 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 and be factual, no emotion. They did this, they want this, and I told them I'd relate to you right away, and that's what I'm doing. Now I'm taking the buyer's hat off, and I put the seller's hat on, and I talk to the seller, and I go, look, so what are we gonna do about this? You know, how do you wanna respond to this? And the seller says, dirty SOB, buyer can't stand it, blah, 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 I'm only doing ABC. You leave the dirty SOB part out, you say, this is what they want, this is. And then you just kind of become a conduit of information, you're more neutral. But in theory, aside from the secrets that you're not supposed to tell the other side, you should be comfortable in a dual agency with the seller seeing the communication with your buyer and vice versa. It shouldn't be something that should be offensive to them. So you certainly don't want to have the emails where you say, yeah, that seller, he's been driving me nuts, he's a jerk. He's your seller. He gets to be a jerk. That's their God-given right. So you have to be careful about that. Certainly don't put that stuff in the email. Please. I want you to be careful about that. Well, the next thing I'll talk about, I kind of ramble, I kind of just go through this really fast. It's kind of my ADD nature. But this is the part where everybody's like, our insurance is so much. You make it a little more interesting. That was, who cares? We all know we have to communicate. Let's talk about fraud, right? Everybody likes fraud, right? That's why they turn into those late night TV shows about murder and scams. And it's interesting. I like fraud. It's interesting. So let's talk about the scams that are going on out there. You've all heard about it. You've all heard about the wire transfer scams. A lot of money, 6 figures. You know, money just, at the 11th hour, it goes away. And somebody's, what really happens? So typically what happens is, whether you realize it or not, somebody's hacked into your email. And there could very easily be somebody in this room that's already been hacked and they have no clue. Usually what happens on average is the hacker sits in your account for up to about 6 months. And they watch, they sell it usually, so they sell it on a list. The ultimate perpetrator sits on your account and watches it for up to 6 months and watches your transactions. They know your escrow number, your escrow officer, the buyer, the seller, they've seen documents, they've seen statements, they've seen everything. And then at the 11th hour, perhaps, an email comes from you, looks just like you, close to you, not quite you, to a client saying, oh, wire it here or wire it there, do something differently. First thing you need to know, obviously, is when you represent a buyer or seller, you don't deal with wire instructions. That's not what you do. You don't. I always say don't touch the money. Right? I don't even want the initial deposit check. I like it being wired, right? I like it being delivered to escrow. I don't want to touch it. The minute you touch money, you've just elevated yourself to super attractive in the VRE's eyes. That's when they don't like property management, people who touch money and do things wrong. Okay, well, maybe I don't property management, I'll try not to touch the money. I'm probably pretty much off the VRE's radar if I've been doing that part right now. For the most part, I gotta be really special otherwise to get their attention. So, I tell my clients, you'll never get a wiring instruction from me. Let's just talk about that in the beginning. I followed up in my little email. Just want to make sure you're clear. So that way later on, if they do something stupid and they wire their money somewhere else, you told them it wasn't from you. You need to make sure you're clear. So they do this. But watch your account. Now, how do they hack your account? How do they get in? How does it even happen? Well, there are a lot of ways it happens. First of all, you're all realtors, so they know you're working with money. You're out there, you're Facebooking, you're on the web, you're everywhere, man. That's what you do. You take classes about it. How do I get market penetration? How do I saturate? How do I let everybody know who I am? So you're out there. They know who you are, so they'll send you something. Classic one was there was a story about the lady, I don't know, she was in Virginia, North Carolina, wherever she was. I think it was one of the Carolinas. And she had somebody contact her saying, I want to buy a house, an online response. Awesome, it's working. They responded to her. I want to go look for property with you. You look great. You're everything I believe in. Here's my pre-qualification letter. Let's get going. The agent goes, super. Wow, look at this. It's working. Somebody's responded to me. And they click on the pre-approval letter. And they get the wheel that spins and spins and spins, and the letter doesn't open, and they say, whatever. And they send an email back or whatever, and they never hear anything, and they forget about it. Well, 6 months later, when a bunch of money disappeared, and the FBI came, and the IT people all looked at it, they said, yeah, you remember that little wheel was spinning around from that one? That was the worm. That was what they basically installed in your computer when you clicked on it. That's usually when you open a document. You got to do something. You got to click on it. So I don't click on anything I don't know. And I got to tell you, I just was recently selling a property, and I was getting a bunch of emails, and from escrow. And I thought that was probably from escrow. But I was very careful. I looked at them like, no, something's up. And there was one letter off in the return address. The escrow number wasn't quite right. Sometimes they do a really good job, but even my own transaction, it was clear that somebody was trying to invade my deal. So it's happened to me, and I deal with the transactions usually after it hits the fan. You deal with it before, so you deal with far more than I do. So it can happen to any of you in this room. So don't click and open anything you don't know. Be careful about your passwords. Don't use a password that I can figure it out by looking at your Facebook page. Don't use your dog's name that's on Facebook. Okay, or my favorite place in the world is whatever. My favorite drink's a Cosmopolitan. Oh my God, your password's like Cosmo123. You're gonna figure it out in like 2 seconds. So you have to think about it. You should also change, your mother said wash behind your ears or change your clothes often enough. Your lawyer's saying change your passwords. Don't use the same password forever. Change it. Change it regularly. Like the seasons. You should change your password. And I know it's a real pain in the neck, but you probably shouldn't use the same password for everything. Because once they have it for one, they have it for all. And then I know people that think they're really creative because they say, well, let's see now, my Keller Williams password, it will be KW, 121212. Those are my lucky numbers. Well, they know it's the 12, the 12 from the other, and they know that the other one was like, some initials for the other thing. They're going to figure it out right. So they need to differ. I'm just saying, be careful about that. So you want to change it. The other thing you can do is you can use what's called double authentication. Right? You ever log into your Gmail or something from another computer, and they say, we don't recognize this computer. We need you to do something. There's one extra step. That's because you could be a hacker. It's coming from a different IP address. It's coming from a different computer. So they ask. You can check that in the settings very easily to have double authentication. You need to do that. If you don't know how to do that, ask a 15-year-old. But you need to have double authentication. I mean, that's a real easy thing to do. So watch yourself there. talk about the obvious because it just seems like this continues and has plagued the files that I've seen for as long as I've been doing this. It's the seller who just doesn't always disclose as much as they could or should. I'll give you a crazy example, me. Here's what I do when I sell a property. I tell them everything. I like to talk anyway. So I just barf it all up to the point that they can care less. This is what lawyers do. It's a trick. Just use more words than you do now. So I attached to the TDS, my last one again, ironically, same as the one, 26 pages. Yeah. Because no one's reading 26 pages. But the real reason is because I'm telling you everything I know. I'm coming clean. Page 1, well, you know, I did this, I did that. Page 5, whoa, I did that too. Maybe page 9, Father, forgive me for I've sinned, but there's no permanent there. There really isn't. It won't be telling why. You know, and I tell them about all the issues. And I tell them about the history. Sort of like dealing with people. You know, you can go out on a date with somebody, and they can look great. But like realtors, you know the realtors that have a glam shop? And you're like, it's your dog. Introduce them. When you meet somebody and they look like they're 40, they could be 60. So you ought to look at them. It happens around here. You know, we're outdoors and we like looking good. It's a California thing. Well, that's history. Wouldn't you like to know when you meet them at the Starbucks, they're really 60, not 40? They could be your mom, your dad. Wouldn't this be a good thing to know early before you get too far into the relationship? Same thing when you're buying and selling property. History matters. History is material. Because if you fix the roof 5 times in 5 years, but it's fixed, I don't know if it's really fixed, do I? 5 times is an awful lot of times for something that I would think to get done right once and only once. So that's material. Then also, if you have the issue come back, even if it's fixed, what happened while it was leaking? Well, maybe there's mold, maybe there's wood rot, maybe there's, you know, who knows what's going on. Here's what a buyer's going to tell you. And it really goes back to the default of what a buyer's supposed to know in a transaction. The concept in California is that a buyer knows everything about the property, if it matters at all, just as much as the seller. There's no difference. They are the seller, basically, when it comes to information. They should be the seller for all purposes. They should know the same. They should know. Now, it's as is. Seller may not have an obligation to do any repairs other than what's statutorily required, like carbon monoxide or whatever, you know, detectors and all that. But the notion is when a buyer is deciding what inspections they are going to obtain and whether they matter or not, whether they'll follow up on the additional inspections suggested by the inspector, they know what the seller knows. So they know this was fixed 4 times. Or they know it leaked for 2 months before it was fixed. Or they know that the house flooded. The great one is the house flooded and ServPro came in and redid everything. Well, isn't this great? I have new cabinets, I have new walls, I have new flooring. Yeah, but the house flooded. And the buyer should know the house flooded. And then you can say, ServPro came in and they said they did all this. That's great, but they should know. And here's what I tell my seller, because they just don't want to disclose. Why? Because they think the buyer will get hung up on it. Well, my God, that's the definition of material. There you go, seller, you have to do it. But they don't care the more you tell them. They ignore it, so there's no reason not to. Sellers will say they don't want to disclose it. Do I really have to? That answers the question. But here's how I get their attention. I say, hey, seller, you know, we have this phenomenon. It's a very integral part of society. We have these people, and they're called neighbors. They live all around you. And your neighbors, there's always one, maybe more, but there's always one who comes over to the house right after you close escrow. Literally, like the last box came off the truck, close escrow, sleep deprived, not happy, hopped up on Red Bull, beside yourself, looking at your significant other saying, why did I buy this house and who are you and what did I do to myself? Because you're just that done with life temporarily. It'll all get better. And they knock on the door. Hi, I'm your neighbor. You know, you gotta leave, but you can't because you're your neighbor, you gotta be nice. And they say, you have a minute? Oh, sure. And then they bring a plate of cookies or lasagna, so you just kind of invite them in. And then they sit down. And they start to tell you the 16 reasons why you shouldn't have bought your house. Did you know? Did you know? I think there was a murder. Really? Yes, I heard somebody screaming. And I think there was a meth lab here. Why? I heard the microwave going off late night stuff. Before you know it, you're like, oh my God. Now, some of this stuff may be that absurd and you don't care, but usually there's some real dirt. Like, did they tell you about, it's always when the sewer guy comes with the line, who snake the line. The neighbor comes over immediately, they run it as soon as they see the car, they run to you. And they say, oh, they're back. And they say, back? What the hell? Oh yeah, these people were here like 6 times last year. And the buyer had no idea that there were roots in the sewer line. No one ever told them. Not cool. But it was fixed. The toilet flushed. You know, there was no bubbling crude coming up through the bathtub. We're all good. Well, until the roots grow back. But you have to discuss. So I tell my seller, look, as long as you have neighbors, they're going to say it anyway. You can control the dialogue. Because before the close of escrow, you have the leverage, right? You have the house they want. They've got the money. You know, you can give them the information. They still love the house. They learn of the information after they don't love the house as much, and they've given their money up. They've got all the leverage, because they'll say, you didn't tell me something material, if you're required to do it, I'm going to sue you, I get my attorney's fees under the contract, and if I can show you didn't give me something material, and somebody believes it could be, you're in trouble. You're in trouble, and I'm going to get damages from you, and you won't be able to renegotiate. I always say there's 2 ways to negotiate a sale. Prior to the close of escrow, and after the close of escrow. I like to do it before the close. I like to know what my deal is when I can negotiate the best terms. My deals, I'm hyper about it, right? I'm real energetic, so I'm real hyper. So my deals, I actually send a counter offer back with the TDS and the SPQ and my crazy addendum right away, because that's when they're the most excited, right? That's when they don't care as much, because they're all excited and they want it. That's the best time to give them the bad news. You don't ask mom and dad for the keys to the car when you bring home an F. You ask them when you bring home an A, when they're excited about it. This is how you do it. So you do it right away, you give it to them. The other reason why I like to do it really early is, what happens if they only learn of this stuff after they've spent a bunch of money on inspections?
Upset.
They may be pissed off. They may actually go so far as to say, you know, you should have told me this. You know, you're supposed to give me the TDS as soon as it's practicable. What's that mean? Pretty much right away. Don't sit up. Why am I getting this only later? Had I known about this, I wouldn't have spent the money on the inspector to tell me the house was a dog. I wouldn't have bought it. I wouldn't have gotten the inspection. I would have withdrawn. But you didn't tell me. You sat on it. You owe me my inspection costs and whatever else I want to come up with. And that happens. Okay? So you want to get that stuff out early. There's no reason not to. Furthermore, if you're going to have a problem in a transaction, let's find out now. If it's going to happen, let's do it. And if it's not going to happen, let's not do it so I can get on with the next person. Because I don't want to have the house in the market forever. And what are we worrying about anyway? Inventory's tight. You'll be good. If you've got a house that's at all reasonable and your seller's at all reasonable, you should be able to sell it if you're doing your job effectively. It shouldn't be a problem. But you know, you don't want to. You know, you got to get that stuff out. The other thing you want to do, try to be quick and timely with communication. This happens a lot. You know, clients get frustrated, right? They don't get the first property. Somebody beats them out. You know, maybe they're an engineer, they're a lawyer, so they overthink it, and they like to say, "Well, this is how I want to negotiate." And you're like, "Oh my God, you know, the worst negotiator in the world." But this is what we're going to do. And of course, they don't get the deal, but you have to hear what you're fine. You give them your best advice, so they don't get the property. Second property, they don't get it. You're like, "My God, these people can't work." Whatever. But bottom line is, it doesn't happen. At some point, they get frustrated and they think it's you. They think it's your fault. That's why they're not getting it. My agent's not effective. That's why I can't get it. It can't be them. It must be you. So they're frustrated. So you put an offer in. What you want to make sure you do is you don't want to ever sit on an offer, right? Because if you sit on something and they miss it, it's your fault. So I always say, to me, anytime I get information from anybody, I'm always like, it's information, I gotta do something with it, where's it go? Because if it sits in me, information that does not go somewhere becomes toxic. I always say it's like kryptonite, it will kill you. Hot potato, where's it go? Buyer has a problem, they want the seller to know I got it from the buyer's agent. Blah. Here you go, seller. I tell you right away, I don't wait, because there's no benefit. I move it from point A to point B. That's your job as a communicator. That's really your job. You're the person sharing the information back and forth. So you don't sit on it. Great example. Seller tells you, I'll take the offer, or I'll write a counter offer. Super. It's all written up, seller signs it, you send it on out, and guess what? Another offer comes in. Well, you better get that to your seller right away too. Don't say, we're already in a deal, or we're already negotiating. Nonsense. That's real information. That means somebody else is serious. Your seller may actually even want to take that offer, maybe it's better. Oh, but there's a counter offer out there. So you get it to your seller right away and you say, hey, here it is, what do you want to do? Because in theory, until the other side accepts the counteroffer, they sign it and they send it back, you don't quite have a contract yet, right? But what you don't want to do is you don't want your seller to just say, oh, let's go with number 2, sign it, and I'm going to hold it like a loaded gun, and when you tell me to pull the trigger, I'll pull it on. And maybe I call the other agent, agent number 1, and I say, we're in a multiple counter situation. I'm putting you on notice right now. My seller wants to go with somebody else. And then you go and you accept the other one, or you counter to the other buyer, and before you know it, you can have 2 contracts formed in one property. There's a problem with that now. That doesn't work. Somebody's not going to be happy. The only way you can withdraw an offer effectively is the same way you make an offer. Offers to buy and sell real estate have to be in writing. You don't use smoke signals and powwows and voicemails and phone calls to form a contract. We do it in writing. So if you have sent a live offer to the other side, but your seller now wants to go a different direction, you need to revoke that offer. You need to rescind that offer. And how do you do that? You use the WOO form, right? The woo form, right? You don't use the woo form, you're going to go woo, I'm in trouble. That's how you remember it. So you use the woo form. You withdraw the offer. Yes. Questions, getting ready to give you a so you use the woo and you withdraw the offer. That's how you do it. And then I call the other side and say, I just sent this to you, I want to make sure you know. But I send it first, then I call. Because if I only call and they're really kind of creative, they're going to sign it and they're going to send it to you and they're going to go, I don't know what you're talking about. And now you're going to have a big argument. That's not what you want. So just be careful, and you got to get these offers real fast. So you've got a phone, you can get these things, you can forward it on to your client. Don't sit on things. It's always I had a personal function that I had to go to. That 3-hour, they disappeared, things happen. Take a bathroom break, go out, sorry, you're a realtor, look at the phone. See what you need to do. And then don't too quickly do it, because you got to read it, right? So the screen may be small, blow it up. Make sure you're looking at what you got there. Take a look at it. Okay, but you absolutely want to make sure you do that. Otherwise, you're going to have a real problem. Flippers. You got to talk about flippers. Flippers are the bane of my existence. Flippers. I should like flippers. I'm a licensed general contractor. I used to build houses. I'm still a licensed general contractor. So I can't get rid of them. So once they get you, you're in, right? So I like rehabbing houses. I just got involved with a big rehab. I live in the house now. I love it. Not a personal rehab, a house rehab. But anyway, so it's great. And I like that stuff, but flippers are trouble. Please, no. You think, oh great, I'm going to work with a flipper. They're going to feed me a lot of business. No, right now you have a serial seller. Okay, you got somebody whose motivations aren't always sacrosanct. They're not always pure. They're to make money. We all want to make money. But at what point are you making money and cutting corners? At what point are you not doing things the way that you should be doing? I always say one person's cleanup, that's the flipper. Look at the house before. Look at it now. You know, and they go, it's a cleanup. And when the buyer moves in and they find Jimmy Hoffa in the basement, they say, it wasn't a cleanup, it was a cover-up. It was a cover-up, it was a cleanup. That beautiful thing, they peel it back and they go, my God, there's mold, and there's wood rot, and there's like spliced wires, and it's bad, it's horrible. So flippers can be issues. Flippers, the one thing I love flippers, you know, they want to keep it cheap, right? This is how they make money. Gotta look pretty, lipstick on the pig, right, all that. Gotta look pretty. You know, it's like a lot of bad surgery, like Michael Jackson surgery, like eventually it doesn't look right. That's what happens with these properties, it catches up. And then the people buy it and they go, this is not good. I don't like this house. So it becomes an issue. The flippers also like to reuse, well, first of all, if you represented them when they bought the flip, because that's how they said you'll make money when you sell it, don't worry. That means you knew what a dog it was. You can't divorce yourself from what you saw just because you say the seller did the TDS and the SPQ. You can't forget that. You have to talk about that. You have to be careful. Maybe you need a little help creating that. Maybe go to your broker, but you need to be careful about that. The other thing the flipper likes to do is HOA documents. I've only had the property for 60 days. I'm not buying the HOA documents. I'm $750 for HOA documents. It's ridiculous I have them right here. We're going to use my documents. That's not good because things happen. What happens if in the last 60 days they talk about a pending assessment? What happens about all the things that go on that aren't in the documents? First of all, you won't be compliant as a seller if you don't give the current documentation, right? So I tell my seller, unfortunately, that's a cost of selling. You need to have current documentation. If they say, no, I talked to a lawyer, and they said I can produce it myself. So I got the package from when I bought it, and I'm going to contact the HOA and just get what happened in the last 60 days. I'll usually ask you to do that, because this is going beyond the boundaries, because they'll have you pick up the dry cleaning. Don't. That's not your job. You start talking about that stuff and looking into that. You're not required to do me, you do. Trust me, that's going to be the assessment that didn't report quite right, and you're going to get caught in the process. So what you do is then you give a disclosure saying, seller's got these. I always tell my seller, right, you should have escrow do it, you should have them order. But if they say they're not, then I hand those documents over and I say, seller got these, seller bought the property here, they say they got these other documents, here you go. So I've proven that I protected myself by telling my seller what they should do, and I make sure the buyer's on notice through their agent. That's how I do it. So be careful with the flippers because they're not your friend. And I think that's probably pretty much it. What I'll do is, and I always do this, usually there's somebody that's got a question or two or more, and they don't want to share a group, you know, because they respect your time. That's the only reason why. And if that's the case and you want to talk to me privately, I'll be discreet. I only tell one person at a time. But, you know, I'll stick with it. Okay?
We have two quick announcements. Judy?
Just want to announce everybody to my second big book signing on Rushmont Center this Saturday from 4. If you'd like a flyer, I have one here. I'd love you to come. Thank you for supporting the other campaigns.
Appreciation of Bob. Come on up here, Bridget. Bridget wants to take a picture or video.
Yeah, quick video of everybody.
She's watching
for,
live. She's watching live.
Oh, she's watching live.
Hi, just kidding.
Well, no, the camera's there. Evie's at home.
Everybody turn around and say hi to Eve.
Yeah.
Hi, Eve.
Hi,
We love you.
Oh,
All right, you guys, you've been great. Have a great day.